My wife went to party, fed up with my impotence, so I vanished in silence, heartbroken. She said go be single bye. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. The muted colors of the room felt heavy around me, like a blanket I couldn't shake off. I could hear Sarah laughing with her friends in the other room, the sound drifting in like a reminder of everything I was supposed to be. She had always been the life of the party. Even in our early years, her laughter would fill the air, drawing people in. I used to revel in it, but now, it felt like a distant echo of a life I was losing grip on. At 32, I had expected to be more confident, more capable, more whole. Instead, I felt fractured. Impotence. The word haunted me. It had crept into our lives like an unwelcome guest, disrupting everything. At first, it was easy to brush off. It happens to everyone, I told myself. But as the days turned into months, I could see the disappointment in Sarah's eyes. It was like a slow fade to black, where once there had been vibrancy. I glanced at the clock. It was just after 7. The party was in full swing, and I had half a mind to join them. But every time I tried, something held me back, a familiar weight that settled in my chest, making it hard to breathe. Instead, I remained in the shadows, retreating further into silence. "Mark, you okay?" Sarah had asked earlier, her voice filled with concern, tinged with frustration. I could never muster a proper response. "Yeah," I'd said, but it was a lie. I wasn't okay. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life, watching her from a distance while she thrived. As the laughter continued, I heard her voice rise above the others. "I love this song," she exclaimed, and then I heard the music kick in, a catchy beat that only amplified my isolation. I closed my eyes, wishing I could drown it all out. The door swung open, and one of her friends, Lily, poked her head in. "Mark, come join us. We're playing games." Her enthusiasm felt like a foreign language to me. I managed a weak smile, shaking my head. "Maybe later." I didn't even recognize my own voice, soft, almost pleading. Lily shrugged, her expression shifting from excitement to concern. "You sure? Sarah's been worried about you." I couldn't bear to look her in the eye. Instead, I stared down at my hands, rough and calloused, hands that once felt strong. "I'm fine, really." "Okay, but don't isolate yourself," she said, then left, closing the door softly behind her. With each passing minute, the noise from the other room only grew louder. I felt like I was suffocating. I got up and paced the small bedroom. The walls felt like they were closing in, and I desperately needed air. I stepped outside into the cool evening, letting the crispness of the night wrap around me like a lifeline. The streetlights flickered to life, casting long shadows across the pavement. I took a deep breath, letting the chill fill my lungs. It felt good to be outside, away from the laughter and chaos. But even here, I couldn't escape the reality of my situation. I walked around the block, letting my mind drift. Thoughts swirled like autumn leaves caught in a gust of wind. I wondered how long Sarah would put up with this version of me who couldn't fulfill her needs. The uncertainty gnawed at me. Was I still the man she fell in love with? Eventually, I found myself standing outside a small cafe that had been a favorite of ours. The windows glowed warmly, filled with laughter and chatter. I peered inside, catching a glimpse of couples sharing intimate moments, friends enjoying each other's company. I felt an ache in my chest, a reminder of everything I missed. I took a step back, almost retreating into the shadows again, but something made me linger. I watched people smile, laugh, connect. The reality of my own isolation hit me like a punch to the gut. I turned away, unable to bear it any longer. When I finally made my way back home, I felt like a specter returning to a place that no longer felt like mine. The laughter had faded, replaced by the soft murmur of voices that drifted through the house. I stepped inside, the familiar scent of her perfume lingering in the air, mingling with the remnants of the night. Sarah was in the living room, surrounded by her friends, laughter punctuating their conversation. I stood at the threshold, a silent observer, my heart heavy. I wanted to be part of it, to feel like I belonged, but it felt impossible. She caught my eye and smiled, a genuine smile that momentarily flickered warmth in my chest. "Hey, you're back." "Yeah," I replied, forcing a smile. But inside, I felt the gulf between us widening. "Come join us," she urged, patting the seat next to her. I hesitated. I think I'll just sit this one out. Her expression shifted, confusion shadowing her features. Why? I want you here. I wanted to explain, to tell her I felt broken, unworthy of her affection. But words failed me. Instead, I offered a weak nod and retreated to the kitchen, where I poured myself a glass of water, letting the cool liquid wash over my tongue. It did little to quench the thirst for connection I craved. As I stood there, I overheard snippets of their conversation. Laughter erupted again, and I felt an inexplicable longing wash over me. I wished I could join in, to laugh freely without the weight of my inadequacies. But all I could do was listen, drowning in the noise. I could sense Sarah's gaze lingering on me, her concern palpable. I hated that I was causing her pain, that my silence was a barrier between us. But how could I tell her? How could I admit I was scared of losing her, scared of never being enough? The evening wore on, and eventually, the guests began to filter out, leaving only the two of us. The house felt quieter, but the tension hung thick in the air. I watched as Sarah began to clean up, her movements brisk, almost frantic. "Mark," she finally said, breaking the silence. "Can we talk?" I nodded, dread pooling in my stomach. I knew this conversation was coming, and yet I felt unprepared. "Why do you keep shutting me out?" she asked, her voice steady but strained. "I'm worried about you." I opened my mouth, ready to spill my truth, but the words tangled in my throat. I don't know what to say. "Just be honest with me," she urged, her eyes searching mine for something, answers, perhaps. "I feel lost," I finally admitted, the weight of the confession lifting slightly. "I don't know how to fix this." Her expression softened, but I could see the disappointment creeping back in. "I don't want to feel like I'm alone in this, Mark. I need you to be here with me, to fight with me." "I am fighting," I protested, frustration leaking into my voice. "But it's hard when I don't even know how to fight for myself." She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I just want you back. The Mark one fell in love with." The silence that followed felt deafening. I wished I could promise her I'd return, but all I felt was the weight of my inadequacies. "I don't know if I can," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. Her shoulders sagged, and in that moment, I knew she felt the same despair I did. It was a silent acknowledgement that things might never be the same. "Maybe you need to take some time for yourself," she suggested quietly, her voice laced with resignation. "Maybe," I echoed, but it felt like an empty promise. We stood there in the quiet, both of us grappling with our fears and failures, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a long, painful journey. The days dragged on, and silence became my constant companion. I spent my time in a fog, going through the motions of daily life but feeling utterly detached. Sarah seemed to sense my distance, but her attempts to bridge the gap often felt more like a reminder of what I was missing. I was lost, and it was consuming me. I'd always considered myself a patient man, but the weight of my impotence made patience feel like a cruel joke. Every day felt like a battle I was destined to lose, and I could see Sarah's frustration simmering just beneath the surface. The laughter that once filled our home now felt like a cruel taunt. One Friday evening, I came home early from work, hoping to surprise Sarah. I thought maybe if I put in a little effort, I could reclaim a part of what we had lost. I walked through the door and found the house empty, eerily quiet. A sense of unease settled in my stomach. I busied myself in the kitchen, trying to push away the creeping anxiety. After a while, I heard the door open, and Sarah's voice floated through the air, light and carefree. "Mark, I'm back." I turned to see her enter, a glow about her, as if she had just stepped out of a fairy tale. She looked radiant, dressed in a fitted dress that hugged her curves perfectly. For a moment, my heart swelled with admiration. But that admiration quickly morphed into confusion as I noticed she had a small bag in her hand. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Oh, just out with some friends," she replied, brushing past me to the kitchen counter. She rummaged through her bag, avoiding my gaze. I felt a prick of suspicion, but I tried to shake it off. "You look nice. Is there a special occasion?" "No, just felt like dressing up," she said with a casual wave of her hand. But there was something off about her demeanor, an energy that felt dissonant with the words she spoke. I dropped the topic and suggested we make dinner together. But as we cooked, the air between us thickened with unspoken words. I could see her glancing at her phone, her expression shifting as messages came in. "Who are you texting?" I asked, unable to keep the curiosity out of my voice. She hesitated for a moment, then replied, "Just a friend." I forced a smile, but something twisted in my gut. I tried to push the feeling aside, telling myself I was being paranoid. That night, as we settled down to watch a movie, I felt an insistent itch of discomfort. Sarah was distant, her focus half on the screen and half on her phone. I couldn't shake the sense that something was off. Later, when she went to the bathroom, I glanced at her phone resting on the coffee table. The temptation to snoop clawed at me, and before I could think better of it, I picked it up. The screen lit up, revealing an array of messages. I hesitated but opened her texts. My heart raced as I scanned the conversation. It was between Sarah and someone named Ryan. The messages were flirtatious, playful, and filled with inside jokes that felt alien to me. "Can't wait to see you tonight," one read. Another message said, "I miss your smile. It always makes my day better." A knot tightened in my stomach. I dropped the phone back onto the table, my breath quickening. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Just then, Sarah returned, her laughter filling the room, and I struggled to mask my reaction. "Hey, what's up?" she asked, her tone bright. "Nothing," I replied, forcing a smile, but I could feel my heart racing. I didn't want to confront her yet. I needed time to process what I had seen. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment in my mind. The betrayal hung heavy in the air, suffocating me. The following days felt surreal. I walked through life like a ghost, my mind racing with thoughts of Sarah and Ryan. Each time she laughed or smiled, I felt a surge of anger mixed with heartbreak. I wanted to confront her, but fear gripped me. What if I was wrong? What if I misunderstood the messages? But deep down, I knew. I could sense it in the way she avoided my eyes, the little things she no longer did, the way she no longer reached for my hand or initiated closeness. One night, I couldn't hold back any longer. As we sat on the couch, the television flickering in front of us, I turned to her, my heart pounding. "Sarah, can we talk?" She looked at me, surprise etched on her face. "Of course. What's on your mind? Is there something going on that I don't know about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Her expression shifted, and for a moment, I thought I saw fear flicker in her eyes. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I saw your messages to Ryan. It didn't look like just friendship to me." The silence that followed felt like a chasm opening between us. Sarah's eyes widened, and I could see the realization wash over her. "Mark, don't," I interrupted, my voice breaking. "Just don't lie to me. I need to know the truth." Her gaze fell to the floor, and I could see the tension in her shoulders. "It's complicated." "Complicated? Is that what you call it?" My voice rose, but I didn't care. "You're flirting with another guy while I'm sitting here, feeling like a shell of myself." "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, her voice trembling. I felt alone, and Ryan was there. I never intended for it to go this far." "Alone?" I scoffed, bitterness spilling out. "I've been alone too, Sarah. But instead of reaching out to me, you chose to find comfort in someone else." "I'm sorry," she cried, her eyes glistening. "I didn't know how to handle everything. I thought I was helping you." "Helping me?" I echoed, disbelief flooding my voice. "By cheating, you think that helps? I thought I was going to lose you," she whispered, and the confession hung in the air like a heavy weight. The hurt flooded over me like a tidal wave. "So you chose to betray me instead? That's your solution?" "I was scared," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought you were slipping away, and I didn't know how to pull you back." I felt numb, the anger giving way to a hollow ache. "So you found solace in someone else instead of talking to me?" "I'm sorry," she repeated, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I thought I could keep us together while I was falling apart." I turned away, unable to look at her anymore. I felt like the ground beneath me had crumbled, leaving me standing on a precipice. The love I once had for her was mingling with betrayal, creating a bitter cocktail that I could hardly swallow. "I need time," I said, my voice low. "I don't know what to do with this." "Mark, please," she started, but I cut her off. "Just give me space," I said, my heart breaking for both of us. I left the room, the weight of her betrayal hanging in the air, and I retreated into the solitude of my mind. I needed to process this new reality, the truth that felt like a dagger to my heart. As I lay in bed that night, the darkness closed in around me, and I felt the distance between us stretch impossibly wide. I realized I had to make a choice, to fight for what was left or to walk away from a love that had been tainted by betrayal. The days turned into a blur, each one indistinguishable from the last. I moved through life like a zombie, lost in thought, haunted by Sarah's betrayal. Every corner of our home felt like a reminder of what had been shattered. The laughter that once filled the rooms was replaced by an oppressive silence that echoed through the walls. I tried to keep busy at work, pouring myself into tasks that felt meaningless but required my attention. My colleagues noticed my distraction, but I brushed off their concern with half-hearted smiles and vague reassurances. Inside, I was unraveling. Sarah and I had reached an unspoken truce. She would try to engage me, asking about my day or suggesting we go out, but I couldn't shake the feelings of betrayal that clung to me like a shadow. I found myself withdrawing further, choosing solitude over the warmth of her presence. One evening, I returned home to find the kitchen filled with the aroma of something delicious. Sarah was busy cooking, her movements fluid and graceful. For a moment, I felt a flicker of warmth, but it was quickly extinguished by the reality of our situation. "Hey, you're home," she said, her voice brightening the room. "Yeah," I replied, my tone flat. She turned to me, her smile faltering as she took in my expression. "I made your favorite, lasagna." I nodded, the taste of nostalgia bittersweet on my tongue. "Thanks." As we sat down to eat, the atmosphere felt heavy, the air thick with unspoken words. I pushed the food around on my plate, not really tasting it. "Mark," she began, her voice tentative. "Can we talk about us?" I glanced up, meeting her gaze, and for a fleeting moment, I saw hope flickering in her eyes. But hope felt dangerous now, like a fragile glass teetering on the edge of a table. "I don't know if we can," I said honestly. "Why not?" she pressed, her expression earnest. "Because I don't trust you anymore," I replied, the words tasting bitter. Her face fell, disappointment etching deep lines across her features. "I know I messed up. I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt you." "Then why did you?" I shot back, unable to contain my frustration. "If you felt alone, you could have talked to me. I would have listened." She looked away, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I thought I was losing you. I was desperate. Desperate enough to throw away our marriage." I countered. "What about our vows, Sarah? Did they mean anything to you?" "It was a mistake," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "I never meant for it to go that far." Silence enveloped us, the tension palpable. I could feel the ache in my chest deepen, and I pushed my plate away. "I need space," I said again, my voice weary. She nodded slowly, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "Okay. I'll give you space." The days that followed were filled with a haunting emptiness. I spent most of my time in my office, avoiding our shared spaces. I couldn't bear to see her, to feel the weight of her presence as a constant reminder of what had shattered between us. One evening, I sat at my desk, staring blankly at the screen, when I heard a knock on the door. It was Lily, my colleague and friend. "Hey, I brought some takeout," she said, her smile warm. "Thanks," I replied, grateful for the distraction. As we ate, I found myself confiding in her about my struggles, the weight of Sarah's betrayal. "I just don't know if I can come back from this," I admitted, my voice thick with emotion. Lily listened attentively, her expression sympathetic. "You deserve to be happy, Mark. You can't live in limbo forever." "I know," I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "But I still love her." "It's complicated. Love doesn't excuse betrayal," she said gently. "You have to think about what's best for you." Her words resonated, but the thought of letting go felt impossible. I didn't want to lose the life we had built together, even if it felt like it was crumbling around me. Over the next few weeks, I started seeking solace in the outdoors. I took long walks, letting the fresh air fill my lungs, hoping to clear my mind. Nature became my refuge, a place where I could escape the chaos of my emotions. But even in those moments of peace, thoughts of Sarah haunted me. I'd replay our conversations, her laughter, and the way her eyes lit up when she was happy. It felt like a cruel joke that those same eyes had betrayed me. One evening, I found myself standing at the edge of a park, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The colors painted across the sky were breathtaking, but they brought me no joy. I felt like I was trapped in a beautiful moment, unable to escape the darkness that loomed within me. As I turned to leave, I noticed a couple nearby, their hands intertwined, laughter spilling between them. I felt a pang of longing, a reminder of what I used to have with Sarah. Back home, I opened the door to find Sarah waiting in the living room, her face a mix of hope and trepidation. "Mark, can we talk?" I hesitated but nodded, my heart racing. "I've been thinking," she started, her voice steady. "I know I hurt you, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to work on this. I want to fight for us." "Fight for what?" I challenged, the bitterness rising again. "You've already broken my trust." "I know," she said, tears glistening in her eyes. "But I still love you, Mark. I want to make this right. Do you really think it's that simple?" I asked, frustration spilling over. "You can't just say you're sorry and expect everything to go back to normal." "I'm willing to do whatever it takes," she replied earnestly. I watched her, torn between the love I still felt and the betrayal that lingered like a festering wound. "What does that even mean?" "Counseling. Talking. What will fix this?" "Whatever you need," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. "I just want a chance to show you that I can be the person you fell in love with." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to hold on to the hope that we could mend what had been broken. But doubt gnawed at me, whispering that I would only be setting myself up for more pain. "I don't know, Sarah," I admitted. "I really don't. Just give me a chance," she pleaded. "I'll prove to you that I can change." It felt like a gamble, an uncertain bet on a future that felt so fragile. I took a deep breath, weighing my options. "I need time to think," I finally said, unable to commit just yet. She nodded, resignation washing over her face. "I understand. I'll give you space." As I retreated to my office once more, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a long and painful journey. The distance between us felt insurmountable, and I knew that finding a way back to each other would take more than just words. Over the next few weeks, I continued to process my feelings, and the internal struggle played out like a war within me. I still loved Sarah, but the scars of betrayal ran deep. Trust wasn't something that could be easily rebuilt. It took time, effort, and a willingness to face the painful truths of what had happened. I began to explore the idea of counseling, unsure if I was ready to take that step. I spoke to Lily about it, who encouraged me to consider it seriously. "It could be a way for you both to heal," she said gently. But even as I contemplated that path, I felt the weight of indecision pressing down on me. How could I go back to her? Could I really rebuild what had been shattered? In the end, I knew I had to make a choice. The question lingered like a specter, taunting me. Was I willing to fight for our love, or was it time to let go? The weeks continued to stretch out, each day feeling like a lifetime. I was caught in a loop of reflection, torn between the memories of what had once been and the stark reality of what lay ahead. I had made the decision to seek counseling, but as the days passed, I felt the weight of that choice settle heavily on my shoulders. The first appointment was set for a Tuesday evening. I paced around the house, heart racing, the air thick with anticipation and dread. I wasn't sure what to expect. Would the therapist help us untangle the mess we had made of our lives, or would it simply serve as a painful reminder of the hurt between us? When the time came, I found Sarah waiting in the car. Her expression was a mix of hope and anxiety, and for the first time in a while, I felt a flicker of connection, a fragile thread that tied us together despite the chasm of betrayal. We arrived at the counseling center, a neutral space filled with soft colors and calming decor. As we sat in the waiting room, I could feel Sarah's hand brushing against mine, tentative yet hopeful. I glanced at her, and for a brief moment, I remembered the warmth of her touch, the way it had once made me feel alive. The therapist, Drive Andrews, was a calm presence, her demeanor warm and inviting. She welcomed us into her office, gesturing for us to sit. The walls were adorned with inspirational quotes, and the atmosphere felt safe, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. "Thank you for being here, Drive," Andrews said, her voice soothing. "I know this can be difficult. Let's start by discussing what brought you both here today." I glanced at Sarah, unsure of where to begin. "I think we're here because we've lost our way," I said, my voice steady but my heart racing. "I'm struggling to trust her after everything." Sarah took a deep breath. "I understand. I hurt him, and I regret it every day. I want to make things right." Dr. Andrews nodded, encouraging us to share our feelings. The session unfolded slowly, with each of us taking turns to speak. I found myself opening up about my feelings of inadequacy, my sense of betrayal, and the suffocating silence that had filled our home. As the conversation flowed, I could see Sarah's anguish reflected in her eyes. She spoke about her fear of losing me and her desperation that led her to seek comfort elsewhere. The weight of our shared pain filled the room, and for the first time in a long while, I felt the walls between us begin to crack. After that first session, I felt an unexpected sense of relief. It was as if we had finally acknowledged the elephant in the room. There was no quick fix, no magical solution, but at least we had taken the first step together. Over the next few weeks, we attended sessions regularly, slowly peeling back the layers of hurt and misunderstanding. Each session was challenging, forcing us to confront emotions we had buried deep. The anger, sadness, and confusion began to surface, but so did moments of vulnerability and connection. One evening, after a particularly intense session, I turned to Sarah as we walked to the car. "I didn't expect this to be so hard," I admitted. "Neither did I," she replied, her voice soft. "But I think it's helping us, even if it hurts." I nodded, feeling the truth of her words. It was painful to relive the betrayal, but it also opened the door for healing. I could sense a shift in our dynamic, an undercurrent of hope amidst the struggle. As the weeks turned into months, I began to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with. Sarah made an effort to show her commitment. She planned thoughtful dates, took interest in my hobbies, and reached out to reconnect with friends. Yet, the road to healing was fraught with obstacles. There were moments when my anger would bubble to the surface, often triggered by the smallest things. One evening, as we watched a movie, Sarah's phone buzzed with a message. I felt a familiar knot tighten in my stomach, and I had to remind myself that she was trying to rebuild trust. "Mark," she said gently, sensing my discomfort. "I promise you, I'm not hiding anything from you. I want to be open." I took a deep breath, letting her words wash over me. "I know. It's just hard to shake off the memories." "I understand," she said, reaching for my hand. "But we're working on this together. I'm here, and I'm committed." Those moments of reassurance became essential, grounding me in the journey we were undertaking. I started to realize that healing was not a linear path, it was filled with ups and downs, twists and turns. One day, as we drove home from another session, I took a detour to a park we used to visit often. "Remember this place?" I asked, glancing at her. Her eyes lit up with recognition. "Of course, we had so many picnics here." I pulled into the parking lot, and we stepped out, the warm sun casting a golden glow around us. As we walked through the park, I felt a sense of nostalgia enveloping us. The laughter of children playing nearby and the rustle of leaves in the breeze brought back memories of simpler times. "Do you think we can get back to this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Sarah paused, looking out at the lake. "I want to believe we can. I know it will take time, but I'm willing to fight for us." Her words resonated deep within me, and I felt a flicker of hope reignite. As we strolled hand in hand, I could feel the tension slowly easing. The memories of betrayal lingered, but they were no longer the only thing that defined our relationship. After several months of counseling, we began to explore the idea of rebuilding our lives together outside of the therapy sessions. I noticed a shift in our communication. We were learning to express our feelings openly without fear of judgment. One night, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, Sarah turned to me with a serious expression. "Mark, I know we've been through a lot, but I want to talk about our future. Where do you see us going from here?" I felt my heart race, a mixture of fear and excitement flooding my veins. "I don't know," I admitted. "I want to believe we can rebuild, but it's still a struggle." "I understand," she said softly. "But I'm committed to doing whatever it takes. I don't want to just survive this, I want us to thrive." Her sincerity struck a chord, and I felt a surge of affection. "I want that too," I replied, my voice steady. As the weeks rolled on, we began to take small steps toward rebuilding our lives. We went on weekend trips, explored new hobbies, and slowly began to introduce each other to our friends again. Yet, the lingering doubts still crept in at times. One evening, I received a call from Lily, inviting me out for drinks with a few colleagues. I hesitated, thinking of Sarah's reaction, but decided to go. When I returned home later that night, Sarah was waiting for me, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. How was it? It was good, I said, feeling the need to be honest. But I missed you. Her eyes softened, and she smiled. I'm glad you went. You deserve to have your own time, too. I could see the progress we had made, but the journey was far from over. As we continued to navigate the complexities of our relationship, the question of commitment loomed over us. I often found myself contemplating the future, what it would look like if we succeeded, and what it would mean if we didn't. One night, as we lay in bed, I turned to Sarah, unable to hold back the questions any longer. What do you envision for us, in the long run? She took a moment before responding. I see us growing together, overcoming this. I want us to create a life filled with love and trust again. And if we can't? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Then we'll have to make difficult choices, she said honestly. But I believe we can make it work. I believe in us. Her conviction warmed me, and I felt a sense of determination swell within. I wanted to believe in us too. In the following months, we began to explore the idea of a new chapter, possibly moving to a new place together. We talked about finding a home that felt fresh, a space where we could create new memories away from the ghosts of the past. It felt like a leap of faith, but as we visited potential neighborhoods, I began to feel a sense of excitement. Each new place we explored sparked ideas of how we could fill it with laughter and love again. But even as we looked ahead, the remnants of our past were never far behind. One afternoon, I stumbled upon an old photo album while cleaning out the attic. As I flipped through the pages, I felt a wave of nostalgia wash over me. There were pictures of us on vacations, at family gatherings, and moments that captured the essence of our love. I felt a mix of longing and pain, remembering how carefree we had once been. When I showed the album to Sarah later, I could see the emotions flickering in her eyes. We've been through so much, she said, her voice thick with feeling. But we can build new memories, can't we? Yeah, I replied, a smile breaking through the sadness. We can. As we continued to navigate the journey of healing and rebuilding, I realized that the road ahead would be filled with challenges. Trust takes time, and it wouldn't be easy, but I felt a renewed sense of hope. Our future was uncertain, but I knew we were taking steps forward together. And for now, that was enough.